Can satire become reality? Welcome to On the Subject. With election year upon us, it's time to start preparing for God knows what. The blame game, conspiracy theories, race baiting, fiery but mostly peaceful protesting, who knows? Debating friends and family used to be a casual and non-hostile event, but nowadays, depending on which side of the aisle you're on, your opinion has the potential to tear your family apart. Let's put all that aside for now, have some fun, and talk about one of the most ridiculous movies ever made. Idiocracy.
Idiocracy.
For the smartest guy in the world, you're pretty dumb sometimes.
Make sure to like this video, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That way you get notified anytime a new video gets posted. Idiocracy stars Luke Wilson and Maya Rudolph. It was directed by Mike Judge, the creator of King of the Hill, Beavis and Butthead, and of course the cult classic Office Space. It's rated R. It was released in theaters September 1st, 2006. With a budget of $2.4 million, it only did $495,303 at the box office. Yikes. The Rotten Tomatoes critic score is 71%, audience score is 60%. So this is the movie synopsis from Rotten Tomatoes. In 2005, average in every way, Private Joe Bowers, Luke Wilson, is selected to take part in a secret military experiment to put him in hibernation for a year, along with a woman named Rita, Maya Rudolph. The slumbering duo is forgotten when the base they are stored on is closed down and are left in stasis until 2505. When they finally wake up, they discover the average intelligence of humans has decreased so much so that Joe is now the smartest man in the world. Here are the top 5 ways idiocracy could actually happen today. Number 1, kids' birthday party at Butt Effers, formerly known as the restaurant Fuddruckers. This is something extremely inappropriate for kids right there, right in front of you. No one cares, AKA the left. So now in the movie, they're too dumb to understand why it's inappropriate compared to the actual push for inappropriateness by adults on children in the real world. Inappropriateness being drag queen story hour, or the explicit sexual content being found in school libraries. Target's tuck-friendly swimsuits that were claimed to have been made for adults, but somehow they conveniently made their way into the children's pride section, so make that make sense. Apps that have easily accessible hidden pornographic material because it's not monitored like it should be. So you have apps like Snapchat being able to send explicit images or videos and it vanishing, kind of like vanish mode in Instagram. TikTok just by scrolling, and hashtags on Instagram and Twitter. Even video games like Grand Theft Auto that have prostitution as part of the game. In the older version, you could just see a car rocking from a distance, but in the new version, you can watch the sexual encounters or even role play with them. Number 2, Brondo. They don't drink water in the movie. They say water comes from the toilet. And they even replaced the crop irrigation system with the Gatorade-like sports drink because it's got what plants crave: electrolytes. Brondo even bought the FDA in the movie, and it's pumping its civilians full of artificial ingredients versus naturally sourced organic ingredients from the earth and its elements. This sounds a little familiar. Now, he didn't buy the FDA, but in 2021, Bill Gates wrote a book titled How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, laying out everything he believes that will help eliminate the greenhouse gas emissions driving climate change. I haven't read this book, nor do I plan to, but he goes into detail about how he thinks we should be eating fake beef, lab-made beef, with companies like Beyond Meats and Impossible Foods, who Gates is an investor in both, that manufacture plant-based meat. He claims that by reducing the consumption of real beef, will reduce the methane emissions by 20%. Methane emissions being cow burps and farts. Yeah. So what's the solution? Synthetic beef. Yummy. That sounds yummy. And nutritious, by the way. Pumping our bodies full of chemicals. Make that make sense. Sure, it comes from plants, but it's still lab created when we can just consume God's natural source of sustenance, the cow, the chicken, the pig, or even homegrown vegetables from a home garden without pesticides. Buying meat from local butcher shops that get the meat from local farmers. I mean, this is a giant rabbit hole that we can go down for a long, long time, but I think my fellow meat eaters get me. Number 3, unscannable. Each civilian in the movie has a UPC barcode tattooed on their wrist so that the government can keep track of their civilians. Now, this is out of pure laziness in the movie, but another comparison that involves Bill Gates, he also joked about implanting microchips with the vaccine. If you've shopped at Whole Foods recently, you may have seen this new payment device that's right there next to the regular payment device where you put your credit card in. This is called Amazon One. There's no microchips involved, but it's a payment system offered by Amazon that's based off biometrics and works by reading your palm print. You just hold your hand above this scanner like a Mission Impossible movie or something. I mean, you're just trying to buy your groceries, right? You're not saving the world. And it takes your payment based off your unique palm print that's linked to your Amazon One profile and account. Amazon planned to have their biometric payment method in over 500 Whole Foods locations by the end of last year, 2023. Number 4, Joe's easy escape from prison. Now, he escaped prison in the movie just by tricking the guards while in line to enter prison by saying he was in the wrong line and that he should be in the line to get out of prison. And because everyone in 2505 is stupid, they just let him go to the other line and he got out. This reminds me of New York's bail reform. That's a stretch, I know, but hear me out. According to BrennanCenter.org, in 2019, New York lawmakers passed legislation ending the use of cash bail for most cases involving misdemeanors and non-violent felonies. The law aimed to reduce the risk that someone would be jailed because they could not afford to pay for release and reduce the unnecessary use of incarceration. These are their words, which can have a profoundly disruptive effect on people's lives. Well, what about the people affected by the crime itself? So sorry that you broke the law, you committed a crime, and that you have to go to jail and it's being so disruptive to your life. I mean, that's a typical slap in the face to all the victims that were affected by these crimes. Now, of course, it depends on the crime itself, but it's a slap in the face to the victim. And these are the same people always wanting to play the victim. So why is there no sympathy for actual victims? Revisions were passed in 2020, but essentially the law separates cases into 2 categories: bail eligible and everything else. Bail eligible cases, in almost any case involving a violent felony where the defendant must pay bail set by a judge or face detention. In almost all the other cases, which include misdemeanors and non-violent felonies, judges may release people on their own recognizance or impose some other set of conditions so they return to court. Conditions could include things like travel restrictions or pretrial supervision. As much as they'll claim that there is no data to support an increase in crime because of the reform, New York Post has an article that might suggest otherwise. In 2022, 10 criminals racked up a combined total of nearly 500 arrests in New York City. 10 people to 500. 2 of which were accused of embarking on a life of crime after the bail reform went into effect. One being busted 33 times and the other 22 times. Mayor Adams even had to step in and demand change by saying, quote, "Time and time again, our police officers make an arrest, and then the person who is arrested for assault, felonious assaults, robberies, and gun possessions, they're finding themselves back on the street within days, if not hours after the arrest." One career criminal was busted 101 times, 88 of those being after the reform. 74 larceny charges, 15 convictions, including 3 for felonies, and he had failed to appear in court 14 times. So if we go back to what they said about not the bail eligible cases, all the other ones, that they had to set certain conditions so that they would come back to court. They're not going back to court. This guy missed his court date 14 times. 14 different times. These New York Post figures were compiled by the NYPD, and it shows a 25.9% increase in 3 or more arrests for robbery, burglary, or larceny in a single year from 2019, before the bail reform, to June 2022. And a 36.8% increase in shoplifting. And this includes like drug sales, theft, it goes on and on and on. And there's other data within the article, which is, all these sources will be linked below so you can find it. But I just thought this was an interesting take and a good comparison to Joe's escape from prison. Number 5, prostitution is legal and they're licensed. Now, I've heard arguments that OnlyFans and cam girls could be considered to be virtual prostitution, but the counter argument to that is that by definition, it's just considered to be pornography. Still bad, but in July of 2022, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed Senate Bill 357, or the Safer Streets for All Act, into law, repealing a statute that prohibited loitering with the intent to engage in prostitution that went into effect January of 2023. On the ACLU calaction.org, it states the repeal, but adds California's law that criminalizes loitering with intent to commit prostitution, gives law enforcement a tool to harass and discriminate against Black and trans communities, particularly women of color. The bill will repeal current California law that has allowed for targeted, discriminatory policing of communities of color and enable people who have been convicted using the subjective law to clear their names. According to CaliforniaFamily.org, as a result, pimps across the state realized they could expand their prostitution operations with minimal fear of repercussions from law enforcement. Duh. It states that law enforcement heavily relied on the state's loitering law as a crucial tool for prosecuting pimps and human traffickers. This law served as the cornerstone for establishing probable cause, enabling investigators to identify victims and remove them from the control of their exploiters. Seems reasonable because, human trafficking is bad. I'd like to stop that. Now, prostitution has surged as individuals dressed in minimal clothing roam the streets during daylight hours in close proximity to businesses, residences, and educational institutions. Video recordings from both the Bay Area and San Diego depict women parading in G-strings, bras, and high heels, even bending over in the middle of traffic, regardless of the time of day. Residents have been complaining about the disturbances, fights, drug-related activities, and the overall inappropriateness of such conduct in proximity to children. That point can relate back to number 1. But needless to say, they're trying to normalize it in some way or another. Well, that was fun, I think. In conclusion, let's just hope that satire does not become reality. Yes, yes. Have you seen Idiocracy? If so, and you thought of some examples or additional examples of some points that maybe I didn't get to today or didn't think of, drop a comment below with that and maybe we can open up a discussion. Thank you for staying on the subject. I will see you tomorrow night for Twitch Tuesday. Make sure that you are following me there as well. Link below, and I'll see you tomorrow, guys, and on the next episode.